Success is supposed to feel good, right? But for many high performers, it often comes with something heavier: pressure. The pressure to keep achieving, to stay relevant, to outperform even your last win. And somewhere along the way, what once felt like an ambition starts feeling anxiety. Welcome to the episode 11 of the Inside Out Conversations. I am Charan, a personal branding consultant and the co founder of youEx Consulting Services. Today I am joined by Manju, the founder of Flip Your Story and a mindset coach who has helped countless leaders break free from their burnout loop of constant performance. In this episode, we are diving into the pressure trap, exploring why so many high achievers feel stuck despite their success and what it takes to move from performance driven living to purpose driven growth. I'm just going to bring Manju into the conversation now. Hey Manju, how have you been?
Hey Charan, I'm great. Thanks for asking. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. So, are you really pressured into talking about the pressure trap?
No, I think I have spent my life for so many years being pressured that it has become my purpose to relieve people's pressure. So I'm more excited than being pressured.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to dive in. The first aspect I want to look at it is from the context of what is the invisible weight of expectation. So Manju, from your experience, I'm pretty sure that you've worked with a lot of high performers. So why do you think these high performers who have achieved already so much still feel the pressure to do more?
And because they get habituated to success, that they keep mounting the pressure themselves. Initially, the expectations comes from outside. It might be a family expectation, it might be societal expectation, it might be anything. Initially, it starts from outside, and then whatever was the external noise slowly becomes the internal voice, right? So then they adopt what is the expectation as to their identity. Then what happens is one success after the other success, it keeps validating, and that becomes like oxygen. And at a point they reach a place where they cannot live without it. Usually growth means you're attempting something new, you're falling down, learning something, adapting, then taking the next step. That's how growth feels like. So growth is like this. But somebody who is in a pressure trap, they just want to consistently be like this. That way they don't grow, and they're extremely pressured.
So if that being the case, do you say that if not all, most or the majority of the people fall into this bucket of it, like, or how is it?
It depends, Charan. I have realized people usually get into this from the wrong side. They usually are bombarded with a lot of expectation, especially if you look at Indian market. We know how education is a very, very crucial thing, right? So time in and time out from childhood, we were constantly told, study well so that you can become something. So it automatically translates into a meaning in the mind that if you don't study well, if you don't perform, you will not become anything, right? Which was probably the truth, say 2 3 decades back. I would still encourage everybody to study. That's a different story altogether. But then it's just that when we keep repeating something, that becomes a subconscious belief, right? So then you're pitted against your own belief. Oh my god, am I doing something right or not? I'll have to perform, I'll have to perform. Usually people perform to a point of breaking apart, that burnout happens, and then they realize, hey, something is wrong. And then they kind of relook at their life and say, what else can I change so that there is a balance? So I'm getting every aspect of life is more fulfilling, right?
Makes sense. So since you mentioned about a lot of aspects that contribute towards this pressure building, I want to break this out into two buckets of it, and I want to ask you on that. So can we say that this pressure is entirely self-created, or this pressure is entirely created by the environment in which these leaders operate in, or if both of it exists, what is the kind of mix of percentage between what is self-created versus what the environment that they operate in contributes to this pressure being created?
Okay. Mostly it is both, and we cannot really derive at a percentage because it usually transition from outside to inside, is what I would say. Right? You get pretty influenced. That's why they say that the environment is very powerful. Right? The environment keeps influencing you to a point that you're one with the environment. Right? So, what percentage I can give you is how many people usually succumb to this. That percentage I can give you, 95% of them definitely fall for it. Okay, and who are these 5% who don't fall for it? Are people who have a high sense of self-worth, right? They see that they are of value, they do something or not. That doesn't equate to laziness. It's just that they take a day or two off and they don't feel guilty about it, and there are very less people. And usually it comes after a phase of realization, after they hit the phase of probably a phase of bad health or relationship breakdown. Then they sit and reflect and they start course correcting. So 95% of the people fall in that segment, and there are 5% people probably they had like a great upbringing where perspectives were given from childhood that you'll have to prioritize yourself, and that's the percentage I would give you.
Okay. So I want to actually ask, this is very intriguing for me. So we, at least for the context of today's topic, we are not talking about leaders in general. We are talking about people who are successful, okay, and who are recognized for whatever the skill that they have. So how does or when does this recognition or success become a trap as compared to it being a motivation?
That's actually very subtle. You know what? When people are going through one failure after the other, failure after other failure, there is still a good probability that the resilience is getting built, where they want to get back up and fight for things. But then when there's one success after the other success after the other success, and that's how you have been for almost like a year or two. Somehow you have left the taste of failure, right? And then when you're facing a situation where there might be a probable failure, most often people take a backseat. They do not want to attempt it. That's how normally people function, unless they are like really aware and they are like, hey, you know what, I really have to challenge myself. That's why I keep telling my clients, hey, don't get comfortable with anything in life. Growth doesn't happen with comfort. In one way or the other, whatever way you feel you can challenge yourself, just go for it. You feel like your mind says you can't do it, just go attempt it. That way you always keep your mind in a way, you keep preparing your mind that your stretching is good. I think that's a good life habit, I would say.
Okay. See, I get it. Like a lot of people would want to uh, keep putting themselves in positions of bettering themselves, but there are also a bunch of people who are highly successful, and that leads to the next conversation that I would want to go into. They're highly successful, and sometimes that success make them feel stuck. Why do
Yes.
you think that people who are achieving, um, they feel that they are more less fulfilled? If I you could use that term, the more they achieve success, they feel stuck, and the less fulfilling it becomes for them. Why do you think that is happening to people?
See, because there are different buckets in life. I'll just use the word buckets. There are different buckets in life, and then most often we are very invested in one or two buckets. Okay. See, let me give you a few examples. Health is one. Relationship is one. Your downtime, your rejuvenation time is one. Your relationship, I've told you. Your work career, your relationship with your colleagues, your progress, all of it, and your self development. These are all like different buckets, right? And most often we are invested in one or two buckets more. Okay, and automatically success comes in those buckets. What you focus, it expands. So obviously you're focused in couple of things, you're doing it over and over every single day. Obviously you will reach milestones faster in that. And what happens in this is we have left out other things which really matter to you. See, for me, traveling matters a lot. So when I'm not traveling at all, I just feel something is wrong with my life. Probably everything is in place, but I still feel something is missing. And when I let it be there for quite some time, I just start feeling very empty. Okay, so for me, that downtime of traveling is very, very important. So similarly, we all have our own unique needs. Okay, for somebody it's just sitting and staring at the sky. For somebody it's just going on a drive. It might be anything. But it's just that when we are so over invested on one or two things because it is giving us the validation that we are looking for from others, and we are letting out the other aspects of life, that's when the emptiness crops in.
Very, very interesting on the different buckets that you talked about. I would want to come back to this a little later, where I want to dive into those buckets aspect of it. But then, as a continuation of this success getting stagnated, um, I want to ask you, do you think that the definition of success, in every individual or in every leader's mind, The definitions remain stuck at one point. It doesn't evolve as expected as to the expectation of the achievements that they go looking for in the future in their journeys. Do you feel that could be a reason?
Probably that might be a reason. And this takes me back to one of the competitions that I was in, Super Speaker Season 3. The first round, the question was, what is your definition of success? And they asked us to record a 2-minute video. And that is when for the first time, I realized that I didn't have a tangible definition for success. And so when somebody comes to me who's a business owner or somebody who wants to excel, I ask them the first question, what is your definition of success today? It will obviously evolve, but it's just that what my thought is, I don't think people give it enough thought at this point of life. What do you mean when you say you want to be successful? The success that our parents wanted us was, we need to have a house, we need to have a car, we need to have like XYZ. But then does that mean success to you? No. Say, as I told you, for me traveling is very important. For my parents, traveling was not even there in the radar, right? So sometimes when success is being defined by others, which most often is in many of the cases, it will leave us feeling empty. Okay, so once in a while, if you want to be really successful, you can sit with this question and ask, what does success mean to you at this phase of your life?
Very interesting that you finished it on that note, because that was exactly my next question. So, how do you, or how do leaders reframe success so that it feels meaningful for them?
See, sometimes I feel leaders become like robots after a point. They have like a bunch of to dos for their office. They have certain personal responsibilities, and they're just juggling between these two. Then obviously somewhere you will feel there's no you left in that process, right? 24 hours you're just running from one thing to the other thing. You might be a visionary, you're probably growing, but then within there's like this emptiness which keeps growing at a point. Even when you're delivering results at work, you're still feeling not motivated. There's no joy in delivering results. That's what we call as burnout. See, burnout is not when you've given up. No, burnout is you're actively functioning. You're actively still functioning, you're still delivering results, but then you're not feeling what we're supposed to feel like before, right? So your feelings is your GPS. If your body, your mind is showing you certain things that, hey, you know what, I'm feeling this today, I'm feeling uneasy. Prioritize yourself, and it doesn't take like an hour's time. Sit with yourself for even a minute, ask yourself how your day was. And if you cannot take that kind of time, and I think it has more to do with a self-worth issue than anything else.
You know what I'm feeling? I'm feeling that you have read my questions.
Oh, I wish.
That's what I feel. See, this is the next segment that I actually
Wow.
want. So, I actually want to ask you if we could draw a parallel or draw a line between a healthy drive for success and a toxic pressure. How would you draw a line between the two?
See, healthy pressure is you still have the drive. You feel like doing the work. Now, you're speaking to a coach who builds performance. So sometimes a lot of people misinterpret saying that I'm going to drill them with a lot of things. I primarily work with their feelings. I make sure that I remove all the weights which are hanging in their throat. Okay, so that way I liberate them off that so that they can fly higher, fly faster, fly quicker. That's how performance coaching usually works. So if you look at what is a positive pressure and what is a burnout is, you don't feel like doing things, but you're on autopilot. You are so used to delivering results, and that delivering results is actually validating you, so you're on a roll, but you feel nothing inside. That's burnout. But you feel like, okay, you know what, today I'm going to see how I can solve this problem. Let me see if I can be motivated. And if you are feeling motivated, then the pressure is still positive. And when I have this conversation with a lot of senior leaders, I often encounter this one repetitive question. They say, ma'am, our life is so monotonous any which ways. I don't think we ever feel motivated to solve any problem. I've heard this so many times from leaders. See, that's when I would urge people to see if you can have some kind of a, probably purpose or meaning attached to your work. We all work, but it's not just money, right? There is a subsequent level after that. Why do we earn the money? Because we want our children to be in a great school, great college. We want to take care of our spouse. We want to take care of our parents. There is always meaning to the work that we take. And if you feel that consistently you're not really feeling up for doing the work, Nobody's forcing you to work in the same company. Start hunting for a job. Even if you cannot get a job next month, you will definitely get a job next year if you consistently try, right? So that trial you cannot give up on.
Now, while it is interesting that you talked about finding purpose behind outside of work, see, I understand that it's easier said than done, but
Yes.
I want to touch upon the aspect, like there is an ambition when it comes to people in positions of leadership and positions of power. There is an ambition with respect to their growth, but how do they find the crossing of the line between an ambition into a burnout? Like how do they go about figuring that out? Like, hey, this is not an ambition anymore. This is getting into the territory of burnout.
Okay. First of all, I have realized that a lot of people don't have ambitions because they have the ambition. They have the ambition because it sounds cool. Okay. They have an ambition probably because that's what they saw their mentors achieving. So they say, you know what, I want to take the same path. Uh, an ambition will not lead you to burnout if you have thought through on your ambition. Okay. And say 5 years before, I had an ambition of doing something, and say if I was constantly building my life towards that ambition, and there might come a point where I feel, hey, you know what, I've evolved into a person where that is not my ambition anymore. You know, you can always upgrade it, you can always take a different direction. So a person who is ambitious and who is driven towards ambition is also a very aware person. So when you're aware, when your mind is giving up on that idea, you actually hear it out.
Okay. See, I want to take an example of people who are, especially in sales positions, to draw this point. People who are in sales leadership roles, there is always a target that is set in terms of how much revenue that they need to achieve.
Right.
Some of the organizations set realistic targets and expect people to achieve 100%. Some of the organizations, they set target which are completely unrealistic, and
Yes.
they expect people to achieve 50 to 75% of it, so that if they set lower, they may probably achieve only 50 to 75% of that lower target. So there are different schools of thought in terms of how the targets are set for leaders to perform. So
Right.
my question here is there something called as a productive pressure? And if it is there, how do you manage it? If it is not, how do you handle it?
Productive pressure is, say, let me give you an example. Say you're climbing a flight of stairs. Okay. Productive pressure is, say, like how we used to jump in childhood. We used to cover up like two, three steps in the same time. And then, but we cannot be unrealistic. We can't jump like 20 stairs at the same time. We're not superhumans, right? So when pressure becomes exceeding, when somebody is forcing you to jump 20 stairs, that's where is the problem, right? But then all of us who's hearing, I'm sure we would have done this experiment of jumping at least 5 stairs, right? We might have fallen down, but then initially the third stair itself was very difficult, but then the fourth and fifth was not as difficult. The more you practice, it becomes easier, right? So even when it comes to sales pressures and numbers, I have had people who really felt depressed going to work because they know that their manager is going to lash out at them, right? The consistent pressure of delivering something which was unachievable, and then that combination of you being a person who's not aware, that's a very terrible combination, right? So then even the smallest of pressure with time becomes a very explosive pressure, right? So that's when you will have to constantly intervene. Here I wanted to speak about the difference between self-worth and self-esteem. See, self-worth is, say, you respect and value yourself as you. It is not attached with anything, your success, how successful you are, what you have. No, it's not attached with all of that. You're just there. Are you a person who values yourself? That's your self-worth. And self-esteem, again, is a very close terminology. Self-esteem is, it fluctuates. Why it fluctuates is based on the choices that you make. um, Say, let me give you an example of, say, probably somebody is going through a rough divorce. Say they have chosen their partner themselves, so constantly they get into this very mentally critical mode where they, hey, you made the wrong choice of choosing this person, now you've got yourself into trouble. So that's the language that they constantly have in their mind, right? So at that point of time, they're constantly critiquing themselves on the choices that they made themselves. So then the self-esteem actually plunges down. Okay, so when they are in a job role where the sales manager is kind of blasting them every other day, their self obviously goes low.
Sounds scary, actually. So I actually wanted to get into this aspect of three things. One is their personal identity. The
Mm-hmm.
second one is the definition of success, and the third one is could be the result or achievement. So I want to touch upon this aspect in asking you, based on the number of leaders that you have worked with. Okay, how many people who are in those positions, they attach their identity to these success and results?
Almost everyone. Almost everyone.
Okay,
See, the
so
corporate
when,
as a culture.
yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just get very excited when I speak about this because, see, corporate environment as such, how it is framed, is it tames you. You know, from childhood onwards, the education system, our college system, our work system, it keeps taming us. It keeps taming us and keeps putting us in a box. And as the box reduces, your space, you start feeling more suffocated, right? So even if a person was like going all out, and a person like that who's very expressive, who does things very differently when they're entering the career, you would see like a decade later they would have become like others, predominant of the scenario. Okay, so why does it happen is the environment keeps taming us. So that's a bit I wanted to add. Now you can further add your question so that I can add my flavors to it.
No, what I wanted to ask as a follow up, since you told it almost happens to most of the people, so what do they do when this happens, and how do they manage it and come out of it?
Most often it's a very similar trajectory. When they start feeling very suffocated, they are like, hey, you know what, I'm not able to actually do this anymore. They are actually there in that period for almost a year or two, from what I have seen. Most often people don't take judgments about where they're working, why they're working that quickly. They take a bit of a time. They realize in 5 to 6 months that, hey, something is consistently off, I need to do something about it. Then probably they might speak to their family, their friends, professionals like me, and then we can dig deeper. And probably if they don't seek out for help, they are within themselves. In a year or so, they go to that breaking point. They're like, hey, you know what, I don't think I want to do this work anymore, right?
What you simply said, if I could put out a terminology, I could call it as leadership fatigue. Okay,
Absolutely.
so what I wanted to ask you is, do you see this crisis between identity versus success versus results, uh, the major factor in people getting into this leadership fatigue aspect of it?
Can you repeat the question for me?
So you mentioned about people having this burnout. So I wanted to phrase it as leadership fatigue. Okay. So I wanted to ask you, this mixing up of your personal identity to the success and the results that come along with it. Does it contribute really heavily to this fatigue coming into the position of leadership that they are in?
From what I would perceive is, from the experiences that I have had speaking to, especially corporate leaders, I'm going to leave out the business owners here because the corporate leaders' behavior is starkly different compared to leadership fatigue in a business owner scenario. And I'm going to tell you more from a corporate leader scenario. They have been in the leadership position for so long. They're so habituated to delivering results. They're so habituated to being pressured to deliver results. They are so habituated to speaking to their employees a certain way. Their identity somehow has merged with delivering results. Okay, so I don't see a separation there, and then the pressure actually builds from that point because there's some or the other thing which is getting missed out. Again and again we are actually circling back because that is the basic. Yeah, that is the basics, because people are attaching their identity to the validation which comes from success. So it's like a khichdi. It goes back and forth into the same thing.
Okay. So now I just want to get into the next aspect of it. You talked about burnout, and you talked about these pressures. So I wanted to touch upon, and you also talked about the different buckets that people have in their life, right? Although those are really good outlets and really good tools for people to ease their life in terms of how do they manage their positions of leadership responsibilities. Uh, Keeping that aside, because that requires a lot of work that needs to be done involving a lot of other people, but from an individual level as a self, where do they even start in trying to manage this pressure loop?
Okay. First is basically there are like so many evaluation tools online. You don't even have to go to a professional. You can probably Google up your issue. There would be one or the other tracker which would be there. You can just sit with it. It will prompt or push you towards thinking a little deeply. Or that's the first thing that they can do. And if you're asking me, like on an everyday basis, what can they do, or say periodically, how they can approach this, I think corporates are now waking up to the fact and reality that we can't just put pressure on people to deliver results. That's not going to happen, because a lot of people are breaking these days, right? So that's why they have they take people out for retreats there, where they have activities in which they connect with nature. As they say, nature heals better than anything else. But this also has to be done periodically. So if you're interested in your own growth, probably you can do it at your own capacity. Just go for a walk without the devices. We have left experiencing life for some reason in a bargain of success and this and that. And if you see in our lives, we don't have evenings. I've been speaking about this to quite a lot of people these days. Earlier we used to have something called evenings in our routine, where we used to have a downtime. I really encourage people to bring in that evening time, where you're unwinding, where you're connecting with family. That is very rejuvenating. Take 5 minutes out. Probably if this nothing can be done, just go out for a quick jog without the devices. If there's a possibility, go out for a walk in the park, go barefoot. These things, this establishes a connection with yourself, right? And a stronger identity comes when you're connected with yourself.
Wonderful. I think all the different ideas that you mentioned, those look something which you can do it on your own. It looks very simple, but then again, for people to do it, there's all altogether a different kind of tug of war between their priorities. And I want to touch upon certain aspect before we close. Uh, if there is one truth about success that these high performing achievers and the leaders, that they you wish they knew it sooner than later, what could that be?
Balance is everything. You cannot keep trading off one thing for the other forever. Balance is magic. And if you are a leader, sometimes we look at leadership not at the entirety, but then we keep leadership as a role within the organization, which kind of spreads across to all areas of your life. If you're a good leader, you should be a master in balancing. And if you're not a master in balancing, you're still not ready to be a true leader. Your organization might call you one, but you're not, because your team is going to mimic you. So if you have all of the areas of your life balanced, you see, sometimes the balance is overhyped. And sometimes it is because we people think that balancing needs a lot of time. No, it doesn't. It needs intention. You have to be very intentional as a leader. If you do not have intentionality, you're not qualified to be a leader in the first place. Okay, so balance is magic, and if you're not able to weave that magic, you'll have to train yourself to weave the magic.
So since you mentioned about balance is key, so what it translates in a different way is the pressure is always going to exist.
Yes.
Okay. So my question here is, if that pressure is inevitable, okay, then how can we learn to make that pressure our ally rather than our enemy in our leadership roles?
No, that's a wonderful question. I keep telling people the same thing. Hey, make it your best friend. The more you resist and make it an enemy, it is going to give you a chase. It's like a dog chasing you, a street dog chasing you. Don't make the pressure your street dog, make it your buddy, right? So when you really look at it as a buddy, you would also try to solve it. You don't have to carry the same pressure throughout. There are certain things which is not going to change in the organization. So at least you'll have to be aware enough to let go of it in terms of the mental load. See, you spoke about the mental tug of war. You need to be very clear as a leader as to what is the win in that war, right? And the win in that war always is balance. And the moment you realize that, when you align your actions towards it, I think there's going to be a lot of peace in all areas of life.
See, while you mentioned that we need to make friends with the pressure that we have, more often than not, as we go into leadership roles, the actual friends that we tend to have in our real life start moving away. So, on that note, I would like to bring this conversation to a logical close, and I would want to touch upon the aspect of what's next that we are going to do on our Inside Out conversations.
Okay. The last episode, I asked you questions about how why branding isn't for everyone, and how can we start finding our right audience. How can we narrow down so that we speak to the right room? Now it's going to be a very logical transition in the next episode. Now we know who are the audience. Now, how do we speak to the right audience? How can we influence and impact them so that the overall objective of personal branding is met? So it's going to be a transition of that, and I'm really, really excited.
Wonderful. I think the last conversation that we had, in fact, broke down a lot of myths in terms of how one has to look at certain matrices and how certain matrices need to be kept aside. So, when you're talking about after finding the right audience and then trying to see how we could cater ourselves to it, I think we are going to go a little bit more deeper in that context of it, Manju. I'm really intrigued by this, the depth that you're diving into, and I'm looking forward to that conversation with you.
Really excited.
Wonderful. So, what today's conversation really reminded me is of this: pressure isn't the price of success, it is a cost of forgetting why you even started in first place. The moment you let your identity be defined by performance, you lose the joy that once fueled it. Thank you, Manju, for helping us see that success doesn't mean to strain, it can mean strength if we lead with awareness and self compassion. I'm Charan, and this is the Inside Out Conversations where we explore the space between personal growth and public presence. See you again on the next episode. Thank you.